I think it's Dan Harmon or someone that said this in writing, is that, you know, the difference between a writer that is successful and a writer that's not successful is that the writer that's successful writes every day. And this doesn't mean that you have to really write every day. But what this means is that they're actually making decisions, creative decisions every day in order to get to an end result, you know, versus the writer that, you know, is planning all the time, or the writer that barely writes because they're trying to be perfect and like have the perfect sentence or the perfect scene. That writer isn't going to go too far because they're too busy trying to be perfect in that moment. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joyous, and today we're going to be talking about how to listen to your inner being. So the first question I want to pose, or the first question that I thought about when I was working on this, is the idea of just do it. You know, just go for it. Just do it. Just do it. Is that toxic? Or is it actually listening to your true compass? So I don't know if your true compass is going to be telling you or yelling at you to just do it. And we're going to get into this in the video. But I want to say, you know, is it toxic or is it listening to your true compass? There's truth in everything, or nothing is true. Everything is permitted. If you've watched my videos before, that's a quote that I've said before from Chaos Magic. But yeah, nothing is true. Everything is permitted. So take what resonates with you, you know? Like if just do it is toxic to you, don't do just do it. But if it feels like you're listening to your inner compass finally by, you know, just doing it, and like setting aside all of your negative thoughts, setting aside all of your anxiety, setting aside your tiredness or your weakness, then just do it is what you need to do. But I found for me, discipline can be good. You know, discipline can be great. But I know when I'm being too strict with myself, it never works out sustainably. But at the same time, I know listening to my inner being can also mean listening to the laziest, most insecure part of my person that wants to keep me safe and comfortable. Like the brain is looking for comfort and routine and safety. So, you know, my inner being can sound like something that's like, sleep in, you know, do the bare minimum, don't do it, you know? And I want to talk about how there are many I's, or there are many inner beings. There's many, you know, there's a multitude of me's that are within you. There are many inner beings, and we have very little control over which one we listen to. Like for example, you say that you want to, I don't know, eat less cookies, you know? You want to eat less cookies. Or you don't want to eat cookies, you know? But a cookie comes around, or you go into the kitchen and there's cookies. You're going to eat those cookies. And those are two different yous. The first you is the you that's, you know, sober. You know, that's the one that's chosen free will. And that you is someone that is trying to make better changes for themselves, or, you know, take care of themselves or whatever. While the other you is the you that's still trying to take care of yourself and is still trying to like feed you, you know, and like wants to please you and make you happy and, you know, release some serotonin in your brain. You know? So like both there's two different yous. When like you eat the cookie and then you do eat the cookie. Like the one that doesn't want to eat the cookie, that's an I, and then the one that eats the cookie is another I. So there are many I's. And this idea, I mean, like, there's a few different things that talk about how there are many, you know, in there's, you know, psychology talks about this. But I'm reading The Fourth Way right now. So that's where I got the idea of there are many I's within us. So which inner beings do we actually want to listen to most of the time, you know? And I've broken them down into three different ones: the spiritual, psychological, and emotional. And they're all very like, they're pretty similar, you know? For example, the spiritual is the higher self, your soul or your divine essence. And like, for me, whenever I think about the spiritual one, for me, I think about how there's the all is one, the universe is mental, and there's no difference. And yeah. I'm going to talk about how there's no difference between here and there in my video on how to be successful or how to feel successful before it comes, you know? So you can actually like create the life that you desire. But yeah, recognizing that there is no difference between here and there, that the thing you're yearning for really doesn't matter. That is something that I've been thinking about a lot when it comes to like what my spiritual inner being is trying to tell me is like, stay calm, stay relaxed. Recognize that rushing towards anything isn't really worth it, because you're still going to be there, and like you're still going to have to deal with your own emotions, and like you're still going to have to be the person that you are right at this moment. So yeah, there is no difference between here and there. Now, the psychological is your intuition or your subconscious. And to me, this is actually listening to your inner being in terms of, like if you know subconsciously that a strict diet isn't going to work for you and you need to eat a holistic diet and like be intuitively eating, so eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full, instead of doing some juice diet, or instead of doing some water fasting thing, or instead of eating only fruits for weeks or months on end. If you like intuitively know that you're not going to stick to it, then listen to that inner being and try to build your voice and build a connection between your intuition and yourself. And so I'm working on this right now. Like, I used to be a very time-based eater, or I used to be a very emotionally based eater. But now I'm listening to my body and I'm trying to stay calm and just listen to when it's hungry, listen to when it's, full, and eat around that instead of trying to eat around time or eat around my emotions per se. Now, the third inner being that we want to listen to is the emotional, the calm, grounded voice beneath the anxiety. The voice that tells you to just breathe. The voice that tells you to relax before doing something potentially nerve-wracking. Like for me, before I started these videos, I had to take a few deep breaths and be like, it's okay. You can do this. You've got this. So yeah, those are the inner beings that we want to listen to. The reasons we lose touch with our inner beings is childhood programming. So in our childhood, we used to listen to our inner beings pretty well. When we were hungry, we would go eat or ask for food. When we were thirsty, we would go drink. We would get water or whatever. When we wanted to play, we would go play, When we wanted to sleep, we'd go to sleep. But, even early on, our parents are trying to, or a lot of parents are, instead of you going to sleep when you want to go to sleep, you're going to go to sleep when they tell you to go to sleep, Or you're going to eat when they tell you to eat. Or you're going to eat as much as they tell you to eat. You have to finish your food, I know I've had a messed up relationship. Like there's a core memory in my brain of there was a time where I didn't want to eat something, or I was done eating, and like my parents would not let me leave the table and wouldn't let me reheat the food until it was done. Well, until I was done with it. And like I was sitting there crying. It felt like hours. I don't really remember how long it was, but that was a core memory of like eating food and not being very like feeling out of control with the food that I was taking in, And, nothing against my parents. Like, that's a very natural, normal thing that, like, parents tend to do is get their children to eat food, But childhood programming leads you to stop listening to your inner being as much and start listening to your parents, or start listening to your parental guidances or whatever. There's another one that stops listening. The reasons we stop listening to our inner being or we lose touch with our inner beings is social programming. So like you get to school, maybe you've had your parents have been letting you listen to yourself this whole time, but you get to school and you're told to like this thing, or you're told to act like this, or you're told it's time to get a boyfriend, or you're told that like you need to like have your first kiss soon, or you're told that, I don't know, your backpack's ugly, or like you shouldn't do this hobby because it's nerdy or something. These are all things that were socially programmed within us, like a social norm that we had to ignore our inner being for in order to, get social connection, So, and you might not even really remember what it's like to just listen to your inner being and like to eat when you felt like eating, or sleep when you felt like sleeping, or like doing stuff that you want to do. And that sucks, There's also trauma that gets us from losing trust with our inner being. So, like, anything that's traumatizing gets you to not, listen to what's going on in your body and start, like, reacting only to what's going on outside in your head or outside in your environment. You stop listening to your inner being and you just stay anxious and, like, have this voice in your head to, like, avoid doing something at all costs. Even if, like let's say, you got traumatized painting or something, or like writing. Someone told you that your writing sucked or your painting sucked, or you were assaulted while you were doing something. Your inner being is going to tell you to go back to doing that thing. But the rest of you is like, heck no, like the last time I did this, I got hurt, so I'm not going to do this. So trauma can lead you to, losing touch with your inner being. Another thing that might lose touch with your inner being is listening to too much of what you think you should be doing, or shoulding all over yourself. So like, listening to the experts, listening to what your parents said, listening to what your like people above you say. There's a logical fallacy, like appeal to authority, just saying that 4 out of 5 dentists recommend this toothbrush. Like, who knows if those dentists were paid to do so, or who knows like what the situation with those dentists were in the first place. Like not saying that not listening to your dentist is a good thing, but like it's an appeal to authority, and like we don't know why, an expert said what they said, or we don't know if that's actually gonna work out for shitting on yourself too much. Yeah, like listening to authorities too much, and just trying to find your, like for me, like it took me the longest to actually listen to an authority, because I had to go through the process of listening to myself. And like the authorities tell you to like do intuitive eating, other authorities tell you to do something else in order to like, maintain a healthy weight or whatever. But yeah, we lose touch with our inner being by shitting on ourselves too much. And like for me, I was shitting on myself a lot when it comes to eating, because I thought like if I did intermittent fasting, like doctors and authorities say that intermittent fasting's good, but I found that time-based eating is just not good for me. Like I don't actually, enjoy time-based eting. For a while it worked, but it doesn't for the long term. Like I know this now, But anyway, so here's some signs that you're disconnected from your inner being. For like, 1, you overthink everything. So overthinking can look like, for me, I hesitate when I'm working on a new project at work, or like when I started working on a new project at work this week. I would hesitate a lot before I made a decision on what I was supposed to do, because I wanted to be perfect all the time. And hesitating at work slows you down, or like hesitating slows you down, What I found, I heard this somewhere, but the difference between like people that are like successful, wealthy individuals and people that are like, working on their craft, or like, broke or whatever, is that the people that are wealthy or like have a successful entrepreneurship thing, they make split decisions very quickly. They make decisions quickly, and they make many decisions. Like this can look like someone, okay, for example, this is, I think it's Dan Harmon or someone that said this in writing, is that, the difference between a writer that is successful and a writer that's not successful is that the writer that's successful writes every day. And this doesn't mean that you have to really write every day. But what this means is that they're actually making creative decisions every day in order to get to an end result, versus the writer that, is planning all the time, or the writer that barely writes because they're trying to be perfect and like have the perfect sentence or the perfect scene. That writer isn't going to go too far because they're too busy trying to be perfect in that moment. So, yeah. Overthinking things does not lead you to your desired result. Doing things leads you to your desired result. Anyway, you keep sticking to habits that you don't want to do. So there's a sign that you're disconnected. Like, you keep sticking to the habits that you don't want to do. For me, like, when it comes to my exercise, I'm still trying to figure out what my fitness journey is going to look like. I know I need to do some sort of fitness. And I'm even like, debating that. I know, health is important, but I think for me, trying to figure out what I want to do every day for my fitness is something that I need to figure out. Like, I was forcing myself to get up and walk at 5 a.m. every morning, but I stopped doing that. And like, I can't bring myself to do that anymore because I don't want to wake up that early, or like, I don't really want to work out at that moment. And something that interests me is weightlifting and like feeling my muscles get stronger or more toned or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know what I want to do for my fitness, but I've stopped my walking at this point, and like, I'm going to turn to something new because I don't want to do something just because a bunch of people, like Skinny Talk, told me to like walk every day or do 10,000 steps every day. If that's not how my fitness journey is going to look, then that's not how my fitness journey is going to look. Anyway, another way that you feel, or signs that you're disconnected, is that you feel behind in life. So feeling behind in life can mean I know for me, for a while I was like, man, like, all these people online are doing all of these things, or like, oh, like, my sisters went back to school before me, like, or like, they have graduate degrees and I don't, like, I feel so behind, da, 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 da. Well, like, what if that's not your calling? What if my calling is not to go back to school? What if my calling is to just do this? What if that's my calling? What if your calling is something else than what you're supposed to be doing? Or you feel behind in life and, like, you don't, like, just stop. Comparison is the thief of joy, and comparison is also the thief of success. Because if you compare yourself to everybody else, how are you going to get your own success? How are you going to get to your own joy? How are you going to get to your own success? Also, you're constantly asking for other people's input. This is another sign that you're disconnected. When you can't make a decision without texting your friends or texting your parents, or for me, texting my mom, oh, should I do this? Or like, how does this sound? Or like, should my next video be like this? They're not going to live your life. They're not going to live that outcome. It might be good to, like, get some input on someone who's had experience before, or someone that you trust their opinion on, but doing that for, like, every decision in your life, like, I'm not in a group chat, but I have been in the past a part of group chats, or I've heard of people in group chats, like, sending in, like, oh, should I keep talking to this guy? Or, oh, should I, like, what do you think about this guy? Or, like, oh, what do you think of my drink? What should I order at Starbucks? Like, all these little decisions that you're asking other people for, that's not okay. Like, make your own decisions, Also, you're constantly looking up advice or how-to videos. So, I'm hoping that my channel is going to help bring you the confidence that you need. And I hope that whoever got to this video, maybe you are looking up how-to videos and you're looking up how to listen to your inner being, But if you're constantly looking this stuff out and you're not applying the advice, or you haven't found what's, meant for you to, like, take home and learn how to do this yet, then I guess keep looking. But it's a sign that you're disconnected from your inner being if you're constantly looking up advice or how-to videos on how to live life, how to, like, be a person. Like, there's a difference between, like, how to get a job, or like how to, like, what's it called, fix an oven, that's a good how-to video. How to fix stuff, that's what you should be looking up. But for me, I spent a lot of my years, like, looking up how to attract this, or how to do this, or like how to, like, feel good, or like how to, I don't know, like how to listen to your inner being. I think that's a very big thing that I've been trying to work on for the longest, right? And the last thing, when it's signs you're disconnected, is that you have an external locus of control versus an internal locus of control. So locus of control means, like, where does your control come from? An internal locus of control means that you make decisions based off of what you're feeling on the inside, and, like, you're self-assured. You're someone that can make a decision without having to, I don't know, check the weather or like, I don't know, not check the weather, but you're someone that, versus an external locus of control is someone that reacts to the world, or like reacts to, the people around them, and like they're just really basing what they do with their life based on the people in their lives, versus like what's going on internally, and this is like your inner being. Like, we're going to try to, like, raise up, and this is how to make your inner voice louder. We're going to talk about that, is like how to improve your internal locus of control, and like how to, like, center yourself in your own life, So the first tip I have is to do automatic writing or morning pages every day. So get up in the morning once you feel ready to get up or once you have the time to do so, and just write and don't stop. Write, literally, if you say, I don't have anything to write, I don't have anything to write, over and over again, you're going to come up with something to write, or like, I hate this, just write what you feel, what's coming up in your brain, and do that for like a page or two at the very least, and just see what comes out. You don't have to read these pages over again, but automatic writing really gets to the root of what your inner being is thinking, or like what are those fleeting thoughts that you have that you don't really pay attention to, or you like shush away or whatever, right? Also, spend the first hour of every morning in silence. This can mean, like, for me personally, what I like to do is like put an alarm on like an hour before I'm supposed to, like, actually wake up and do stuff, and just lay in bed and just think to myself. Like, this could be meditation, but this could also just be me thinking about what I'm going to do for the day, thinking about how yesterday went, and like slowly connecting with myself for that hour in bed, not going back to sleep because no, like, I don't know. For me, that's how, and if you have to get out of your bed, do that, go sit somewhere, maybe do your automatic writing, but connect with yourself in that morning without, talking to anybody, without being on your phone, without doing any of that. Another tip to make your inner voice louder is bring awareness to your body as frequently as possible throughout the day. So like, be aware of how you're sitting, be aware if you're breathing shallowly, be aware if you are hungry or full, be aware if you are someone that, you have some pain in your shoulder or something. Become aware of your body and like bring it back to your body so you can see how you can meet the needs of your body in that given moment, And then lastly, before doing something you don't want to do, journal about what you're feeling beforehand. So for me, something that I'm going to be implementing when it comes to my fitness is I'm going to write a page about why I don't feel like walking, or I'm going to write a page about why I don't feel like, I don't know, eating a healthy food. And it doesn't mean that, I'm not going to eat the healthy food, or it doesn't mean that I'm not going to go do something else, or it doesn't mean that I'm going to have to go do the walk. But I want to start seeing what my inner being is thinking before I make these decisions for myself and before I do something that I don't want to do per se. I want to hear myself out and ask myself why I don't want to do this, So that's my video for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed these videos. Please check out my last video, which is how to not feel embarrassed about going after what you want. And my next video is probably going to be something about how to be successful or how to feel successful before the success actually comes. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.